what he said about Tim Walz. Do you agree that President Trump undermined public trust in law enforcement by suggesting that Governor Walz was involved in the Hortman murders?
I am not familiar with that statement.
Well, that is a disappointing response, and it is also why your office and Donald Trump have zero credibility, because I know, and you know, it was a right-wing extremist.
What we are seeing today in the halls of Congress isn't just a debate over policy. It is a full-scale war over the definition of truth itself. The exchange between Congresswoman Kamlager-Dove and Attorney General Pam Bondi is a chilling masterclass in what happens when the nation's top law enforcement apparatus begins to prioritize political loyalty over objective data. This isn't just about a heated moment in a hearing room. It's about the systematic scrubbing of federal records and the weaponization of conspiracy theories at the highest levels of government. The body language on display here tells a story the transcript alone cannot capture. Notice the way Congresswoman Kamlager-Dove remains almost perfectly still, her eyes fixed on the Attorney General. It's the posture of an interrogator who already knows the answer. On the other side of the table, Pam Bondi's responses are punctuated by a defensive, almost practiced stoicism. When she is asked if a law enforcement leader should be honest, she doesn't just say yes. She immediately pivots to include members of Congress. This is a classic whataboutism tactic, designed to dilute the gravity of the question before it's even fully asked. One of the most shocking revelations in this session is the mention of the Hortman murders. For context, this was a brutal, real-world tragedy involving the murder of a Minnesota lawmaker's family. The fact that the Department of Justice's own office in Minnesota obtained an indictment against a suspect, yet the president was publicly suggesting a sitting governor was responsible, creates a terrifying paradox. Bondi's response, claiming she is not familiar with the president's statement, is professionally catastrophic. In a world of 24/7 intelligence briefs, the idea that the Attorney General is unaware of a massive conspiracy theory regarding a DOJ investigated murder case isn't just a loophole, it's a total breakdown of accountability. We are watching a sitting Attorney General refuse to acknowledge her own department's indictments to avoid contradicting a political superior. This is a dangerous echo of the ongoing issues we see with the Jeffrey Epstein files. Just like the Epstein Black Book, where public promises of transparency were suddenly met with a "nothing more to see here" memo, we see the same pattern with the DOJ's domestic terrorism reports. Kamlager-Dove catches Bondi in a lie of omission regarding the scrubbing of data that shows right-wing extremism outpacing other threats. The strategy is clear. If the facts don't fit the narrative, you don't argue with the facts. You simply remove them from the website. This generational destruction of institutional integrity is exactly what critics have been warning about. When data is treated as a political inconvenience rather than a public safety tool, every American is put at risk. But this is only the tip of the iceberg. The way this hearing shifts as the evidence of data scrubbing is laid bare is something you need to see to believe. Stay tuned as we break down the final minutes of this confrontation, where the mask finally slips. Before we dive into the second half of this breakdown, if you value this kind of deep dive, no-nonsense analysis that actually looks at the body language and the hidden loopholes in our government, do me a professional favor. Subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. We are living in a time where independent reporting is the only thing standing between the public and a complete information blackout. Your support helps us keep the lights on and the pressure high.
The good gentleman yields back. We turn to the good lady from California, Congresswoman Kamlager-Dove.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Attorney General, for being here today. I want to talk with you about an issue on which there is broad bipartisan agreement: the importance of ensuring trust between the American public and those government officials who wield powerful law enforcement responsibilities. So, Attorney General, would you agree that it is important for law enforcement leaders to be honest?
Of course, as well as members of Congress.
Thank you. And would you include yourself as a law enforcement leader?
Of course.
Okay, thank you, thank you. You know, President Trump has also, he has referred to himself as the chief law enforcement officer of this country. So do you believe that President Trump is honest?
He is the commander-in-chief of the United States of America, and not only is he keeping this country safe, he is keeping this world safe.
It's a simple question, which you didn't answer.
He is the commander-in-chief.
Last June, Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman, her husband Mark, and their dog were brutally murdered in their home. And your USA's office in Minnesota investigated this crime and obtained a 6-count indictment of the murder suspect, stating that he had intent to kill, injure, harass, and intimidate Minnesota legislators. And I have the copy right here. I read through it. Yet a few weeks ago, President Trump suggested publicly that Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was behind these murders, posting on his Truth Social account a video raising this conspiracy theory. And it wasn't true. And you know it wasn't true, or else you would not have brought an indictment against the subject. Do you know what else Trump has said? He has said he has cut gas prices by 1,400%. False. That he won the 2020 election.
Actually, gas is down to $1.99 a gallon, thanks to
President Trump. That he didn't know Epstein.
Maybe $5 in California.
It's my time, Mr. Chair. That he sent water to LA during the wildfires. False. That Governor Westmore of Maryland called him the greatest president of his lifetime. False. So many tales, too many to keep up. But I want to go back to what he said about Tim Walz. Do you agree that President Trump undermined public trust in law enforcement by suggesting that Governor Walz was involved in the Hortman murders?
I am not familiar with that statement.
Well, that is a disappointing response, and it is also why your office and Donald Trump have zero credibility, because I know, and you know, it was a right-wing extremist who murdered the Hortmans. And you and the president are being dishonest with the American people. Last fall, after the horrific shooting of Charlie Kirk, President Trump was asked if there were extremists on both the left and the right. And his exact words were, "I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. The radicals on the left are the problem, and they're vicious, and they're horrible, and they're politically savvy." Do you agree with this statement? You're taking too long, Madam Attorney General, but you know the answer because your own department has addressed the question. In 24, the DOJ's research arm issued a report on domestic terrorism stating that the far number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violence extremists. The DOJ published the report, and after the president made those comments, the DOJ took the report down. And I sent you a letter asking you a simple question. Why did the Justice Department remove the data that shows right-wing extremists have killed more innocent people than left-wing extremists?
Did you refer to immigration enforcement as domestic terrorism?
You should answer my question. Yes. You're on my time, but you won't. And what I am asking you to do is put the report back, restore the data. Stop scrubbing important data from your website. Stop taking down reports that you know the American people need to know about. There are violent, dangerous people out here with real threats, and the dishonesty from your agency comes from the covering up of these threats that could hurt American people and put our lives at rest. Do better. And with that, I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Lady yields back. The gentleman.
Continuing with the scrutiny of this transcript, we have to talk about the gas prices comment. It sounds like a minor point in a high-stakes hearing, but it serves a vital purpose. When the president claims he cut gas prices by 1,400%, a mathematical impossibility, and the Attorney General defends his honesty in the same breath, we are no longer in the realm of policy debate. We are in the realm of cult of personality. Kamlager-Dove points out that the report was taken down immediately after it contradicted the president's rhetoric. This is a direct hit to the credibility of the Department of Justice. Historically, even in the most polarized administrations, the DOJ's research arm was considered sacrosanct, a place for objective truth. To have the Attorney General sit there and essentially ignore a letter asking why that data was scrubbed is a chilling indicator of where we are headed. Look at the speech patterns here. Kamlager-Dove is using closed questions, questions that require a yes or no. Bondi is using open-ended deflections. When asked if she agrees with the president's statement that radicals on the right are just people who don't want to see crime, Bondi stays silent for far too long. That silence is the loudest thing in the room. It signifies an inability to defend the statement as a law enforcement professional, but a refusal to condemn it as a political appointee. We have to ask, who benefits from a Department of Justice that hides its own data? If we can't trust the DOJ to report accurately on domestic terrorism because the numbers make the administration look bad, then we are flying blind. This is exactly what we saw in the Epstein saga. A sudden closure of information right when the trail got too close to people in power. The cover-up isn't a bug in the system. It has become the system's primary feature. The final moments of the transcript are a masterclass in frustration. Kamlager-Dove's demand to restore the data is a plea for a return to a reality-based government. When the Attorney General responds by asking if immigration enforcement is domestic terrorism, she is intentionally trying to bait the Congresswoman into a different argument to avoid talking about the far-right extremists mentioned in her own department's report. This video shows a Department of Justice that is currently under a scrubbing operation, removing facts that are politically inconvenient. It is shocking. It is professional negligence. And as Kamlager-Dove said, it puts lives at risk. The American public deserves an FBI and a DOJ that prioritizes their safety over a politician's social media feed. Thank you for joining us for this analysis on the Daily Report. We will continue to follow these hearings and bring you the details that the 24-hour news cycles are too afraid to touch. Make sure you've liked this video and shared it with someone who needs to see what's really happening behind the scenes in Washington. We'll see you in the next one.